Welcome to the Security DNA podcast powered by SecurityInfoWatch. This is your front line for bold insights and real intelligence that cuts through the noise and gets straight to what matters most. I'm Samantha Schober, Assistant Editor of SecurityInfoWatch and the producer of today's episode. At SecurityInfoWatch, we deliver sharp, real-time insights into the biggest challenges facing security and risk professionals today. From emerging threats to game-changing technologies, we go beyond the headlines to provide expert analysis, real-world strategies, and critical risk intelligence, giving you the knowledge you need to stay ahead in this rapidly evolving landscape. My colleague, Steve Lasky, a seasoned security industry veteran with over 35 years of experience, will be joining us today. As the editorial director for the security group at Endeavor B2B, Steve brings deep expertise and a unique perspective to every conversation. Today's guest is Tara Dunning, Vice President of Global Security and Network Infrastructure Sales and Strategy for Wesco. So let's get started. Tara Dunning joined Wesco in 2021 as Vice President of Global Security, focused on driving advancement, evaluating new go-to-market opportunities, and rising to meet emerging trends across segments, verticals, and geographies. She is currently the Vice President of Global Security and Network Infrastructure Sales and Strategy. Dunning has had a successful career delivering transformative growth in the IT and OT industries, holding multiple sales and strategy leadership positions across global distribution, manufacturer, and service provider companies. In addition to her service on the SIA Board of Directors, she has been actively involved in various women's and multicultural organizations over the last 15 years. So with that, let's turn it over to Steve.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Security DNA. Today's episode dives into one of the most significant transformations happening in our industry, the evolving role of the systems integrator. No longer just a product installer, forward-looking integrators are becoming strategic technology partners, helping clients harness emerging innovations like IA, IoT, and cloud to unlock new business value. So we're going to explore with our guest today how cameras are shifting from being security devices to visual intelligence assets, why platform aggregation and single dashboards are redefining situational awareness, and how generative AI is enhancing and complicating this unified view. We're also going to talk about practical ways AI is already changing how security professionals interact with their IoT-based systems and what true visual intelligence really means. The operational efficiencies organizations can gain when the camera becomes a tool of everything. So, it's a conversation about the future of partnerships, platforms, and intelligence and security, and how integrators can thrive in this new landscape, and how the channel must adapt or die. So let's start it off, Tara. It's great to have you back. I haven't really talked to you since the ISC West show in April. How you been doing?
I've been doing great, and it's really wonderful to be here. Always a lively conversation, Steve, with you, and packed with insight and great content. So looking forward to it.
Well, that's good. It takes two for that, and you're certainly a big part of that. I mean, again, we had a great conversation talking about the last Megatrends release last year. So this should be fun. So just kind of kicking it off with a basic question: How has the role of integrators shifted from just being product installers to being strategic technical partners for clients, and really invaluable consultative partners with end users? It used to be more of an adversarial relationship with end users and integrators, but that's certainly changed over the last several decades.
It absolutely has. And the reality is the end user, the consumer of the tech, it should be at the center of anything that you're doing, no matter what industry you're in. You think about the technological pace of change, the security industry hasn't historically had so much change in such a short period of time. You think about the consumer versus the business landscape. But it truly is an exciting time for security, and security in the safety world of safety, and securing your people, securing your homes, securing your buildings and assets, it, has a long tradition of delivering value, particularly when it comes to, physical security. The interesting thing is this notion of the integrator has really come to bear beyond kind of the contract installer, the traditional intrusion, alarm-based systems that really sat on proprietary networks. And it was really just pointing a camera, setting up, some IoT devices and kind of responding to that. And over the last, I would say 5 to 10 years, but particularly accelerating in the last 5 years, the integrator is really becoming or needing to become a master systems integrator, working not only on behalf of the end user, but partnering tightly with the manufacturers. And in the case of Wesco, we have the good fortune of being a global distributor that gets to participate actively in this ecosystem. And if you think about the fact that in the early 2000s, when the first IP camera was introduced, here in the United States and North America. And that was some 50 years after the first surveillance camera even showed up as an analog device sitting on a proprietary network, not unlike fire suppression systems. But the alarming piece was on an analog system. And there's virtually no analog cameras or security solutions sold today. It's on an active network, generally managed by IT professionals. And with that comes a host of opportunities. And so you're no longer just thinking in silos and focused on your own proprietary network, but the integrator, contractor, installer has to start to become a master of all trades to really unlock the value of the solutions out there, but also really leverage the power of that network.
Kara, part of that this ongoing digital transformation is the fact that, as you said, we're looking at integrators now almost being the liaison between manufacturers and users and that whole channel flow. But we're at a point now where technology is moving so fast with emerging technologies like AI, with IoT, cloud-based systems, and is it going to be on-prem, off-prem? That having this relationship between manufacturers, distributors, and integrators is crucial to getting anything done. And as you said, we've got a smarter end user now, and they're driving the process.
Absolutely. And every end user, every commercial or business customer also lives and has a home separate from their work. And if you just think about the explosion of home automation, it's logical to extend that to what people want in the workplace. The difference is that enterprises have an obligation to keep, data secure, to really protect employees, protect customers, and protect assets. So it's at a whole different level. If you think about the explosion of IoT, that's nothing new. We've always had sensors. We wear sensors. We have sensors in our homes, smoke alarms, etc. But the sensorization of the physical security industry has really exploded, I would say, in the last 5 years, particularly. And we're seeing more and more IoT devices in commercial settings used for commercial purposes since, to your point, the leveraging of artificial intelligence beyond simple algorithms or machine learning processes. And if you think about most cameras today actually have some set of software on it and have some type of AI enabled, there's a lot of capability. And if you think about the power of the camera versus a sensor, it's got visual, it captures pictures and motion. So visual intelligence, if you will. It can capture audio. So it's got the sound. And then obviously it can capture still. So it's an incredibly powerful compute device. And so we like to refer to it in the industry as the ultimate sensor. And behind every camera that's used as a sensor are 100 other sensors. And so that creates complexity for the master systems integrator, or even the practitioners. And end users are looking at their network, and whether it's, cybersecurity, switches, cameras, access control, any solutions, and they really want someone to help bring it together, simplify it for them, and not have to go to 10 different people, but go to, fewer people to solve their problems and deliver end-to-end solutions for them. And that's the opportunity for today's integrator, but also the challenge.
Right. And, you and I have been discussing this whole conversation about how we're reframing the conversation about today's video surveillance systems and cameras. And, as the saying goes, that data is gold, intelligence is power. And all this visual intelligent assets that can be captured on these cameras is certainly just rewriting and redefining what the value of video surveillance and physical security to an extent has within an organization, how they can build that into the business argument. And at the same time, it's a plus for security end users and for integrators when they go in and talk to C-suite executives at organizations on how they can redefine the value of security, not as a cost center, but as a revenue center, and really promote other things. So, talk a little bit about the how this conversation on advanced camera technology is really redefining how we're looking at security within an organization.
Yeah, I mean, you captured so much. I would love to talk about all the things you just said, but kind of going backwards, capturing the value. We really believe that you can unlock a lot of value from leveraging physical security systems that use AI. And again, machine learning or leveraging data is nothing new, right? We've been capturing data as an industry, and not even beyond physical security. As an industry, we've been capturing data on some level for many, many years. And there's a lot of governance around that, whether it's, privacy, there's certain regulations, and it depends on where you are in the world. Those regulations become a little bit tighter, if you will. With regard to AI, there's ethical and safe use of AI. There's data privacy issues. There's how, governance, and regulation. So, the key to really unlocking the value for an end user and therefore the integrator servicing the end user is to really understand, boils down to what problem are you trying to solve? Obviously, there's a safety component and intrusion detection, but there's going to be different decision makers depending on how that access control or video surveillance solution is used. So, for example, on a manufacturing floor, you may be more concerned about risk and compliance, similar to a warehouse. So you may have sensors that are going to detect extreme heat or too much humidity or smoke or compliance with wearing proper safety and PPE equipment when you're working with hazardous materials. That can do a lot for an operational manager or leader who's trying to ensure the safety of the workers and the integrity of the products and packages they're handling. Correspondingly, for a facilities or building manager, they may be looking at similar things, but also optimizing space and energy management. So when people aren't in a certain wing of the building, allow the HVAC or, cooling to go down or up or lights to go off or, line queuing at a stadium or in a retail environment, optimizing merchandising or, helping to send people to alternate queues so that you can optimize traffic and experience. So unlocking that value is to understand the application, the decision makers, and really how to leverage what are very, very rich tools that can make not only the end user or customer experience better, but also the enterprise.
It's interesting. You talked about the compliance ending. We're looking at uh, how physical security systems are really becoming uh, uh, a lot more cognizant of what compliance and regulatory hits that can be taken by an organization if they're not uh, putting together best practices and discussions at top levels. I mean, you've got GDPR, you've got the California, you've got BIPA, you've got all of these things that need to be dealt with. So, in your mind, as a distributor and someone that deals with integrators all the time, how important is that compliance end of things? Because it seems to really be driving design uh, among manufacturers, but also discussions on installation and when integrators are dealing with uh, architects or engineers before systems are put in, they're really cognizant of that compliance issue.
Absolutely. And so I do think ultimately it's all of our responsibilities, right? To be, um, learned on existing regulations and safety and security requirements. But I would say every manufacturer's job is to certainly do that. You have to abide by certain regulations and certain standards. For distribution, we're no different, correct? Because we're actually handling, the materials often end to end. For Wesco specifically, in more than 50 some countries around the globe, and everyone has the nuances. For the end user and the integrator, I would say one thing is supply chain assurance. That certainly with what happened with the supply chain crisis, and one of the mega trends was global tensions and all of that, and that's kind of here to stay. Like, it's become so complex. We're producing so many things in so many different places, and that pace of change is accelerating like none other in our lifetime. And so when you take all of that into account, it's really important that all aspects of the ecosystem are very careful in how they craft and leverage their partners, and ensuring that they are partners that are trusted and that you can rely on through the entire, call it, supply chain. Chain of custody is another one. Sure. Where it's manufactured, how it's tested, and then how does it comply. Financial vertical may have something very different, or different needs, very similar than an outdoor public space or stadium versus, school versus a multifamily unit. So those are kind of examples where there's a certain amount that's required, but then if you're a financial institution or a data center, there's a whole other set of considerations. So I think choosing your partners wisely, no one company can do it all. But I think the great news is the security industry was born into a compliance, environment. And so we sort of understand all of these things. And so as new applications come in, I think those who were born and raised in the industry understand that it does have to go through thorough testing. It does have to be vetted. And most companies understand that. So picking your partners, there's a certain amount of diversifying and building resilience. But I think the biggest is, as you put together a solution, understanding that kind of full supply chain assurance, the reliability of the source code, all of that, and, that chain of custody and who's handling what, particularly in today's environment.
We're always looking for, I guess, that proverbial one throat to choke approach to security work when we're dealing with our integrators and our end users. But, we've gotten away from the bad connotations of that and really are just looking at that kind of unified view of what security is. So, when you're looking at platform aggregation, kind of delivering that single dashboard across security and building systems and business operations and the compliance issues now, and keeping track of your regulatory risks and also your and mitigating risks. How is AI as one piece of the puzzle, and some of these other advanced analytics enhancing what we look at as a unified view in security, and where are the risks of introducing blind spots when we start maybe relying on AI and advanced technologies more than the human analytics within a platform?
It's such a rich debate. I think today AI enables us, or leveraging analytics or capturing data, even if it's just, sequential screenshots of movement and people. Today, it really all requires human intervention, particularly because of regulation AI and anonymizing sensitive data to, make sure there's an ethical and safe use of it and privacy concerns. But at the end of the day, I think it's up to the people who are working, the teams that are working with the end user, to understand what problems they are trying to solve, because you can have a gazillion, I know that's not a word, but I'm just going to use it, a gazillion bits of data, but you want the data that's going to be most effective at augmenting or solving the problem. So for example, guarding, It has traditionally been people looking, or even in a network operations center, looking at a screen. And, the human eye and brain can only capture so many things in a minute over a period of time. And where augmented analytics and AI has helped is it gets predictive. If it senses a door's opening, it can send an alert. If there are people that are walking down an alley that's usually closed at a certain time of night on a regular basis. So there's a lot that you can train it to do to create alerts. And that's sort of that predictive. In terms of data, capturing the data and data governance, if we go back to the conversation we had at the beginning where traditional security sat on a separate system, now it's part of a network system, that really at an enterprise level becomes a decision of multiple people within an enterprise business or team, right? It's not just someone worrying about access control or someone watching for intruders, but someone looking at a network where your CRM system, your customer relationship management system may sit, or where your building controls may sit, or a whole host of other data. So you have to have the right data governance about what data you're going to share and what data you're going to use to drive actions.
When we're looking at the most immediate ways that we're going to incorporate AI into our physical security systems, you've touched on several of them, and realistically, we're looking at our physical security systems now being so network centric. The days of having a separate access control network versus your IT network are over. So that forces the breaking down of silos within an organization, which is a good thing. And but again, it releases a lot of untapped potential for taking some of this technology that we're talking about here and using it for other things beyond security, but also for the business enterprise. What do you see as some of the most significant untapped potential use case scenarios for using generative AI and agentive AI as we go forward?
Agentive AI is such a great term, and that's really where we're going. I think right now, what we're seeing is a lot of, particularly since, era of COVID, and, returning to work is coming back, is seeing it a lot in kind of the building space and space optimization and energy optimization. Certainly in a retail environment, there's so much self-serve now. There's cameras as you drive through, when you're ordering something at a drive-through for fast food or coffee. But in a building, if you think about all the subsystems in the building, and that's probably the best example of platform aggregation, there's some 19, 20, 25, especially if you're an enterprise. If you get to the pure building, sort of HVAC, elevator, lighting, all of that, water, those have sensors, right? And those sensors can help with avoiding maintenance failures. It can help with energy optimization. If you think about data centers, there's now this push to liquid cooling and, really minimizing the amount of power being used, right? And so we're seeing a lot of that. I think the decision-making points come at that enterprise level, and what we're seeing is a real push for not disparate and siloed systems, but systems that can be interoperable or connect. And there's no real one killer app to solve it all, but certainly access control and surveillance seem like a logical pairing. And so you're seeing a real move to that so that people have, and enterprises have the flexibility. There's also all of these install bases that have been out there for a long time. And it's, a hard thing to tell someone they need to rip and replace to take advantage of new kind of cloud and software-based solutions that when something happens, you don't have to go find someone to unlock the server room and look at the video. You can get that insight remotely on your phone or instantaneously. So I do think that the manufacturers out there are working more closely together to develop more flexible solutions. I think, again, no one company provides it all. and it's important for companies to partner. Correspondingly, it's hard for one master systems integrator to be expert in everything. And so you need to broaden. So it's a great opportunity for people to come together and to expand for an integrator or a manufacturer your routes to market. We're seeing in the physical security space, not just your traditional electronic guards and guns, systems integrators, but we're seeing IT integrators, AV integrators, datacom, electrical, and that's great news for the industry all around. And so I see it as a huge opportunity of people coming together. The traditional security really understands this space well, but IT does too. And the IT folks coming in really understand how to take applications and drive efficiency and optimization.
And there's some great opportunities now for the systems integrators. Again, those that are going to, look at things from an enterprise perspective, managed services and that reoccurring revenue, that all important reoccurring revenue that is really going to help most systems integrators, move to the next level. So there's still that caveat that they've got to sit there and you still got a lot of old school users and clients that you're dealing with. We moved beyond the analog, but we're still not to the point where I think we've earned the trust of a lot of end users, convincing them that they need to put everything in the cloud, that they need to move off-prem. You mentioned about they wouldn't have to worry about getting into their servers or having to deal with upgrades or patching and anything like that. But saying that and then convincing them to do it are two different stories. How do you make the argument as a service provider that this is going to be good for you and eventually better for your business?
Yeah, it's such a good question. And, I've been in the IT industry, and I was on the manufacturing and so I saw the shift to cloud and even moving from just recurring monthly revenue to true as a service plays and managed services. And I would say it depends. It always kind of goes up and down. And, if you look at a hype cycle, I think we're still early innings for a full end-to-end cloud solution. I think it depends on the application, right? And there's certain countries in the world and there's certain verticals where they would never take that risk to put everything in the cloud. And if you think about the hyperscale and mega cloud companies, there's only, a few platforms, right? And so a lot of companies don't want to put all their eggs in one basket. Correspondingly, where I see a lot of the industry going, not only in physical security, but in my past life, is depending on the size of the enterprise, the nature of the data stored, and what the outcome is, they may take a hybrid approach. And if you think about our cameras and access control, it's on an edge network. And there's only so much that you can hold on that edge network without having to have the server. So how decisions about what you capture, how much you store, what you send up somewhere out off the edge network, and then push back, what you anonymize. There's all those kinds of decision making, and that's where that architect or designer comes in to help make that decision. For a smaller business or a location doesn't have a lot of locations or a single location, an end-to-end secure cloud solution may be the way to go. It's simple, it's flexible. I've seen large data centers that say with our points of presence and are smaller, we're going to use cloud, but we're going to have hybrid here. So I think it depends. And I think that's the practical approach. I think, the reality is we all as consumers use cloud every day. I mean, we all have smartphones. So you overcome that sort of suspense and fear. I think the key is what enterprise assets are you comfortable, and that needs to come together with a number of different people of where you put them and how you secure them and who you're working with. And that's certainly been part of the IT landscape for a long time. As for integrators, having that conversation, I think it comes back to what are your outcomes? You want to make your workforce more productive? Do you want to improve your safety in your factory floor? Do you want to reduce energy? Those kinds of things will drive outcomes. It's an easy conversation if you want to send energy information up into the cloud versus financials.
Yeah, what a great answer. That you nailed it on that. And, it sets up our last question. I think it sort of wraps it up in a bow very nicely, is that, when we're talking about the rapid evolution of generative AI and the capabilities it has, not only from like we've been talking about, from a security perspective, but from an organizational and a business perspective, how can organizations design their digital transformation and their platform aggregation strategies right now so they're going to remain, secure, risk averse, and compliant over the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I think again, it's a matter of how much you want to encompass and what you want to prioritize. And certainly Wesco, we've been public about it. We're on a digital journey like everybody else. And like any enterprise, you prioritize what's going to hit the outcomes that you want, whether it's workforce productivity, customer experience, creating a frictionless experience for both your employees, partners, and customers. And that's sort of always been part of the IT landscape. From a physical security perspective, I think it comes back to, what are your standards, what are your requirements, and what are your priorities, and then what data can live together and what data needs to be separate, and then who owns that and who has access to see the full view. And, a lot of software providers have done a great job doing the work for us and saying we will hide and anonymize a lot of this data and only serve up the data that you want. And so I think the software providers and technology providers, the manufacturers can certainly provide a lot of guidance and insight based on their experience. And I'm going to use the word gazillion again, the gazillion of, installs they've done and what they've learned over time. And I know we rely on that and obviously our own experience of having been around for over 100 years, not me, but the company, Westinghouse. So that would be my advice. I think I would close with what we see in the megatrends as a very powerful opportunity for the evolution of our industry is it's really a concentric circle with overlapping, whether it's distribution in any manner, the manufacturers and the integrators. And at the center of that is the end user. And it's upon each of us to think about services that we help to not only enable the ecosystem, but offer, our constituents as we interact with them. And I think that's a really exciting place to be because it's easier to do it as a team and as partners than it is to go it alone.
Outstanding. Very, very good. That's a good place to wrap it up and a good succinct jumping off point here. So that's going to wrap up this episode of Security DNA. We've seen how integrators are moving far beyond installation, becoming true technology partners who help organizations unlock the potential of AI, IoT, cloud, and platform aggregations. I truly want to thank Tara Dunning for joining us and joining me for exploring these strategies for shaping a safer, smarter organization. And Tara, until the next time, I look forward to seeing you at the upcoming GSX show, but hopefully anytime you need something from us, just holler and we will do the same.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure. Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Sam, I'm going to throw it back to you.
Well, Steve, thank you, and our thanks to Tara as well for this outstanding status report on the state of the security industry and how keeping up with advanced technology and best practices will ensure a secure tomorrow. And thank you for tuning in. This podcast is your go-to source for staying ahead in the security industry. It offers sharp insights, real-time trends, and straight talk for industry professionals. It's built to keep you informed and empowered wherever you are. Stay connected, stay sharp, and maintain security at the forefront. To access our podcast lineup, go to podbean.com and search for Security DNA. You can also find our podcasts on our Security Frontline, Integrator Newswire, and Security Week e-newsletters. This episode of the Security DNA podcast was recorded and produced by Samantha Schober, that's me, assistant editor, Security InfoWatch, and Endeavor B2B brand. For Steve Lasky, Tara Dunning, and everyone at Security InfoWatch, thank you for listening, and keep an ear open for our next podcast.